Well, welcome to our call today. I'm really excited. This is the second one in a series, and I really do appreciate you being with us today. It's going to be exciting because, once again, we have Pete Mitchell with us, who's going to be sharing some of the things that he's been doing, and more importantly than the things that he's been doing, the actual numbers behind what he's been doing to show you what can happen when you start to implement the processes and systems we have in place. So I know you're ready to go. Get ready to go for a real exciting interview today, and I hope you have something to write with because it's going to be very important for you to take these numbers down so that you can see what can happen in your own business if you will do some of the things that we're going to talk about today. So with that, Pete, welcome. I'm so glad you're with us again today.
Well, thanks, Martin. I appreciate it, and I'm excited to share all this stuff because, we're getting ready for this training event that we got coming up, and I think it's just going to be a lot of fun. I mean, I really do. I think people are going to be able to learn a lot of great stuff and implement it in their business and have that change that they're looking for. So I'm excited.
Well, the exciting thing for me, Pete, is how we put this whole thing together in the first place. It was on a phone call that we pulled all this together, and then we just, with a matter of a couple of emails to a very small list of people that we selected, how we were able to pull this all together in a very short period of time and create a product that we're going to be able to sell, an event that we're going to be able to sell, and provide information and strategies that the people who are listening on this call are going to be able to implement in their business. So it came together very quickly. It came together with a minimum amount of effort, $0 out of our pockets, really. And I'm excited to get into your mind, into your head, and start digging some of this information out because, like you said, it's going to be very exciting for people to learn how this works and how they can implement it. That's the most important thing, not just how it works, but how they can implement it in their business. So those of you who are listening, I hope that you will take some notes. I hope that you will record some of the things that you're talking about, or that we're talking about, rather, and figure out then, not just have them down on paper or have them in your head, but how then can I put these things into action to make this kind of a thing work for me and for my business? And not only that, but how can you make it work for your clients' businesses as well? Because this transcends your own business. It's something that you can do for your clients so you can make them money and you can make money for yourself as well. So, Pete, why don't we just dig in and dive in and figure out where in the world are we? What's the next step in this whole process?
Sure, yeah. Let me start everyone out on the genesis of getting me to this point. So hopefully you were on the call that we did last week, or at least listened to the replay, where we talked about the deliverables of what I've been delivering. So I deliver a 6-week, typically a teleconference type of package. And for me, it's all pre-recorded, so I don't have to show up. It's, no time out of my schedule. They're all showing up once a week kind of a thing. But, Martin, where this started for me, before I went to your training, I was a consultant, but I was a very misguided consultant. I didn't know the things that you know. I certainly didn't know the things that you train. A lot of the marketing pieces that I had put together, I had to do that out of my own blood, sweat, and tears. I didn't have your magical kit, so to speak, that was already done. That, the book was done, the CD was done. I had to create all that stuff because I didn't know you. I didn't know anything about your training at that point. And one of the biggest mistakes in my life was I took on a client and had no commission split. I mean, what's the term you call that where we get the percentage of the revenue that we create for them?
Well, there's a couple of ways to determine it, or determine it, rather. One is a commission, and another is a contingency.
That's right, the contingency. Yeah, see, I don't even know the right terminology.
Yeah, some people call it a success fee. So you only pay if we have success.
Right. I didn't have that inkling of an idea, and I ended up taking on a client for a monthly retainer of $2,500, and that was it. And I got no piece of the back end. And this client ended up working me so ragged that I was basically doing about 30 to 35 hours a week of work on this client. and only making $2,500. It was absurd. It was insane. It was absolutely just the worst deal I could have ever made in my life. And I remember at one point I went through your training, and I know I hadn't converted her to that. So I started converting to that model where I'm getting a contingency on all of my clients. And we had a blowout one day, and I was like, you're out of your mind if you think, because she was like, well, what are you bringing to the table for me? What are you doing? I'm like, dude, I am working 30, 35 hours a week for you, and I'm only making $2,500. And I had it at that point. I was like, look, if this doesn't work for you, great, we're done, because this is insane. And then she started backpedaling, right, because she was afraid she was going to lose me because I was doing so much. So I converted her over to the contingency. I'm getting that piece, and the income skyrocketed. But the reason why I bring this up is part of what got me to where I am today was I had to find a better way. I had to find a way to get out of actually working for money. We made that joke last week, and those who were in the training with me when I went through with you, because I've gone through a couple of different times. I really don't like working. Like that's not high on my list of things to do. I got to go out and work. I just want the money while doing as little work as possible. And that's what kind of started this genesis of, okay, great. I love the retainer. I love working with clients. I love doing the consulting. However, I want to also have another income stream that's coming into my life where I can not worry about the clients, not worry about even the contingency, not worry about any of that, if they should go away or if I should just get fed up with them and be like, all right, I'm done with you. And that's what kind of, brought about this whole idea of, hey, I'm going to do this training, and I just have to do it over 6 weeks, so the amount of weeks doesn't really matter. But doing it that way. And I just want to share that with everyone so they understand the genesis of what got me to this point of, okay, I want to have some other type of training that I'm able to provide to people and make good money doing it. So that just brings me to the number side of things. So the program that I sell, and by the way, guys, we're going to get into a lot more detail on this at the event. It's not important. It's not germane to our conversation here. And it's not germane even at the event. I'm just going to share it, though, just so everyone understands. But here's the key thing. I knew that this training that I had, there's no way I could provide it to people because we were talking about a transformational program. I knew what it would do for people. I knew what it did for me. I knew it took me literally from going to the courthouse, filing for bankruptcy, about ready to go through foreclosure, to making mid-six figures. And I knew that there was no way I could offer that type of training, that type of program to someone for less than $5,000. I was like, there's no way I can do this. But here's kind of the cool thing on that. When you have a program and you know it is life-changing for people, you know what it's going to do for them, and you price it appropriately, that leaves you a lot of freedom to market the program, especially because we're talking about the training field, which is very high margins, right? I mean, realistically, the biggest expense that I have in my business is the merchant account fee. And there's still bandwidth costs, there's still, the teleseminar system, but those are so small that the merchant account fee is actually the biggest expense I have in my training business. But here's my point in all of this, Mark. So I knew, okay, great, and I'm going to have this $5,000 program. And as I mentioned on last week's call, with this program, I work specifically with what are called church planners. These are pastors. They don't have a lot of money. So you and I talked about this a lot before I even offered it. And you're like, look, I don't think you should offer payment plans. It needs to be all up front, that kind of a thing. And I'm sitting there going, yeah, but I know church planners. I know pastors. I know they don't have that kind of money up front. I'm going to offer them a payment plan. And I've told you since this, I only do it for this group. So if I were going out to other niches, there's no way I would offer this kind of a payment plan. But I'm bringing this up for a purpose here, guys, because I want you to understand the numbers behind what I'm doing. So the payment plan that I came up with was, it was $1,000 down and $500 a month for the next 11 months. So you could either pay me $5,000 up front to go through my training program, which was 6 weeks of training on the phone, unlimited Voxer access to me. So Voxer is an app that allows people to basically message me, and I can message them back. And then we do 2 mastermind calls a month after they've gone through the 6 weeks, and we do that out for the remainder of the program. So it's a year-long mentoring program. And I'm like, okay, so it's $5,000 for it, or it's $1,000 down and $500 a month for the next 11 months, which, if you do the math, is $6,500. So obviously that's the penalty, if you will, for taking the payment option, is you're going to pay $1,500 more than if you did the upfront. But here's the thing. In doing it that way and structuring it that way, the question I ask myself is, okay, if I'm going to go out to the cold market, people I have no relationship with, the question you got to ask yourself is, what am I willing to spend to acquire a client, right? What am I willing to spend? And I would happily spend that. I would spend it all day long, several times a day, if every time I spent it, you gave me a client. And so for me, looking at that, I was like, okay, first of all, I have a good, solid base of income coming from my consulting clients. So it's not like I need to make money right away. But what I'm happy to pay is I'm happy to take that first month down payment, that first $1,000, and spend all of that on marketing to acquire a customer, because I'm not really out any money, right? So if I'm running ads, and ads don't charge you typically every day. They charge you, like I do a lot of Facebook advertising. And by the way, guys, we're going to get into this in very much detail next week. But I do a lot of Facebook advertising. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars a month. I'm not at the hundreds of thousands of dollars a month yet, but one day I will be at that level. But I'm happy to run the ads. I don't get charged every day. It's basically once you hit, like in my case, it's once you hit a certain amount of ad spend and they ding your credit card. But by then, I've probably already got in a client and collected that first $1,000. Does that make sense what I'm saying, Martin?
Yeah, absolutely.
Before you go any further on this?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So here's my point. If you know that you're happy to spend $1,000, and we're going to use Facebook as an example because that's where I do a lot of my advertising. For me, it's costing me, or I should say not what it's costing me. Let me first hit with what my goal was, right? I hadn't marketed to this market before. So my goal was, look, if I can get one person out of every 250 leads I get, I'm going to be really happy. Because I'm asking for $5,000. I know it's not going to be like 1 out of every 10 or 1 out of every 25 or even 1 out of every 50. I was like, look, if I can just get 1 out of every 250 people to buy this, I'm happy. So if I can get those leads for $4 a piece, then that means, 250 leads at $4 a piece, that's my $1,000. And I'm perfectly happy to do that. Now, my leads are actually a little bit cheaper than that, depending on the exact groups that I'm marketing to. My leads are typically between $2 to about $3.93. So, I'm doing pretty good. And when I get leads a little bit cheaper than that, of course, means I can buy even more leads and still hit my goal. But here's what I discovered in doing like this specific program. I was getting a buyer not out of every 250, but I was getting a buyer out of every 150 leads that I had coming into my business. So what that meant was I had the capacity and the margin here where I could go up to $7 a lead, and I'm still well within what my goal was, which is I'm acquiring a client for $1,000. And that's what having a higher ticket product can do for you. So then the next question becomes, okay, so as I saturate a market, what happens if I need to start spending more money, right? So let's say my numbers get off. What if it's, it's costing me $6 a lead, and I'm not getting out of every 150. I'm getting out of every 200 leads that come in. I'm getting a buyer. And as you start looking at stuff like that, you go, well, do I keep offering the program? What do I do? For me, the answer, the simple solution is, and I'd love to hear actually your thoughts on this, Martin, too, because you might have some ideas. But for me, the simple solution is, well, guess what? It's no longer $1,000 the first month. It's now $1,500, right? It's now $2,000. Because I'm perfectly content taking what I make that first month and spending it to acquire the client. Because I know that every month after that, basically my biggest expense, again, is my merchant account fee. And the rest of that's going to be profit. Does that make sense what I'm saying, Martin?
Yeah, absolutely. So what you're willing to do is break even, or maybe even go a little bit in the hole on your first month, on your first payment, right? So if you're getting $1,000 down, it's okay to spend that $1,000, or maybe even a little bit more, because on average, your customers are going to say, well, you know that you're selling an 11-month program at $500 a month, right? So there's another $5,500. If you could just get somebody on board, you have another 11 months coming in at $500, or another $500 coming in for 11 months, which is $5,500. So you're willing to spend $1,000 to get $5,500. But what if a person only stays with you a couple of months? Well, you spend $1,000 to get someone on board, but if they stay with you for 1 month, you just made $500. If they stay with you for 2 months, you've made your $1,000 back. So you've broken even there. But on average,
you'd be ahead. You'd be ahead, like 30
you're ahead, right?
Ahead.
Right. So what you know then, at that point, you know that anything past month 1, you're going to be in the profit.
Right. Exactly.
Right. You're going to be in the good. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you and I have talked about this, and really for me, and I've mentioned this to you before, part of my business, I work with a lot of, again, church planners, pastors, and I told you this. I treat these guys with kid gloves because it's not the typical business world. But if I were going after probably any other demographic, first of all, I wouldn't be doing basically a year-long payment program, right? I would probably split it up into 2 or 3 payments max if I were doing a training program. And so let's just say it was $2,500 month 1, $2,500 in month 2. For me, I would happily spend the whole $2,500 to get that client, because I know the next month the $2,500 I get is all profit, right? So that to me makes perfect sense. I'm totally cool with that. I have absolutely no problem spending that kind of money to acquire that kind of a client.
No, you're absolutely right. And here's the key thing. When you figure out there's 2 things you have to figure out. First of all, what can your market afford? Second is, there's actually a couple of things, more than just 2. The first thing is, what can your market afford to spend? Second thing is, what is it costing them to stay where they are, to not make the investment? And third, how long do they generally stay with you? So once we know those things, that will give us a real advantage. So, for example, you have a market that they just don't have a lot of money. So, and they're trying to do something that isn't going to be really. They're trying to develop a business for themselves. They don't have very much money to put into it. So you're charging them a very low amount, and you're giving them a payment plan to work that out. Now, let's just say that you go after business owners. Business owners typically can afford to spend more than $1,000 and $500 a month. Right? Most of them can afford to do that. Now, understand what happens. When you work with business owners, they're used to writing big checks. They pay for their rent. They pay for their wages and salaries. They pay for their taxes. They pay for advertising. They pay for a lot of things. So they're used to writing big checks. And they're paying for that, for your services with before-tax dollars. Now, the people you're selling to are paying for their services or your services with after-tax dollars. In other words, they've already paid taxes on it. This is discretion. Maybe it's discretional, maybe it's not discretional. They take it out of their savings account in order to buy your system so that they can develop a business. So you're not selling it to businesses that have an easy way to deduct this from their taxes. So when you start going after the business market, these people write big checks. They write it with before-tax dollars. And the key here is find businesses that are already spending money on attracting new business. They're spending money in the newspaper. Maybe they're still advertising in the yellow pages. Maybe they're running ads on TV or radio, or they're doing direct mail. In other words, they're already spending money. They see the value of advertising. They're spending money to generate more customers. Can we take the money they're already spending and not ask them to spend any more, just redirect that money into what you're offering so that you can give them a service and a product that will give them more advantage, more use, more benefit from the dollars that they're already spending. So we're not asking them to spend any more money. We're just telling them, let's take the money you're already investing in advertising or generating more customers, and let's redirect that into something that will give you a better result. Now, there's a couple of things. When you're charging, in your case, $5,000 for a person to take your training, businesses can typically afford much more than that. So I would think that on a basic, bare minimum amount, $5,000 would be that limit. But I would look at businesses and say, okay, if they don't take this training or they don't take this service that I'm offering, what will it cost them to stay where they are? And I'll look at that and figure that out and then say, all right, let's just say that if I had a chance to develop, say, one more customer a month for them, and that customer, let's just say that customer spends $100 with them every month. That's $1,200 that one new customer could bring them over the course of a year, right? So if I got just one more customer, if they didn't do this, it's going to cost them that $1,200. Right, so that's if I had one. Well, I know I could get them more than one customer. So if I got them one customer a week, that would be $5,200 per customer. Right, so if I take a look at this and say, all right, what would it cost them if they don't get involved in this? Then I'm going to sell them based on that amount. So if you take advantage of this, here's what I could do for you. If you don't take advantage of it, if you stay right where you are, you're going to continue to spend your money in advertising or the yellow pages or newsletters or whatever you're doing, direct mail, and you're not getting that kind of result that you could get from it. So I think what you have here is something really valuable, but it's important for everybody to know that you're really working with a very limited market. First of all, it's a very small market. Second thing is the market doesn't have very much money, and you're still able to pull a profit out of this market with a very reasonable payment plan. Now, when you start getting with businesses, significant. Now, if I was going to work with a business and charge them, say, $5,000 for a program, I might look at it and say, okay, it's $5,000 or it's $2,750 times two payments for $2,750. So what they're going to end up doing is spending another $500 if they want to take the two-payment option. Now, sometimes that's all they can do. Another way to do this is say, listen, I'll tell you what I'll do. If you don't have the money right now, don't have the $5,000, what we'll do is we'll put you on the monthly payment plan. If you can come up with the payment in the next 2 weeks, if you can come up with the additional, we'll to round out the $5,000, we'll call it paid in full. So give them 2 weeks to come up with the money. So the way it would work is $5,000 or two payments 30 days apart at $2,750. But if you don't have the $5,000, what I'll do is put you on the $2,750, the first payment. If you could come up with the balance of the $5,000 by the end of 2 weeks, we'll call it paid in full. You'll be surprised how many people can go out and find the additional money in order to save them the $500. But $5,000, I think, for a business would be probably the minimum that I would charge. Now, again, it depends on what you're offering.
That low. I wouldn't even go that low for a business.
I'm just using your figure of $5,000 to put it into a business. I said it all depends on what your offer is. So I was just using the $5,000 that you mentioned as an example. But, yeah, it depends on what your offer is, how long of a program you're going to have for them, what you plan on doing for them, and what the potential outcome is for them, and what the cost is if they don't take advantage of it. Then that's how you base your price.
Right, yeah. And, what's interesting is there's a guy who he's gone through your training. He's a good buddy of mine. In fact, I encouraged him to go through your training. And he's been in my mastermind group for years, and he's been a client of mine. And he sent me a text over the weekend. He's like, hey, listen to this podcast. I really like what this guy's strategy is. And so I listened to the podcast. And it was interesting because let me tell you about what he was selling. So I listened to the podcast, listened to his strategy, and I'm like, yeah, I agree completely with his strategy. His strategy was, let's go out there and sell a high-ticket product. So that way you can afford to go to the cold market, right? If you've got a high-ticket product, you can afford to go out there and spend money on advertising because you're going to make it. So interestingly enough, like later that day, I get an ad from him. And so I always check on Facebook to see why they're targeting me because it's part of my personal research, and I take a screen capture of it all. And I immediately assumed it was because I went to his website to listen to the podcast. Turns out it wasn't. Turns out he was marketing me because I guess I like Ryan Dice or something like that. So that's the reason why the ad showed up for me. So I went through his whole sales funnel. And he happens to use a program called EverWebinar, same program I use for his auto webinars. And I know how to make it so I don't have to wait until the auto webinar time to watch it. I know how to make it just play the webinar right then for me. So I do that because I don't want to wait. I just do the webinar, right? And I download the video, of course, and I got an Evernote file where whenever I do screen captures and stuff like that, and I'm doing something that Russell Brunson refers to as funnel hacking, I keep an Evernote file of all of their emails, all of the pages, their videos, all that stuff. So I can, reference back to it. So I actually watched the webinar. Here's the interesting thing, Martin. What this guy was selling was why you want to have your own list. And he's basically telling everyone that what you want to do is you want to run ads, and then you want to have what's called a self-liquidating offer, and you're going to sell something for $1 to $49, and once they opt in for that, then you're going to have a back-end offer of, maybe $199, then you're going to try to get them into a continuity program for like $40 a month. And by the way, I did it. I made $84,000 a month my third month in. And it's interesting because I'm looking at that and I go, yeah, okay, that'll work. However, my gosh, that's really, really time consuming and expensive because now I need a front end offer. I need an upsell offer. I need a continuity program. And the average person only stays on the continuity program for 4 months. I mean, that's just the standard, right? Now, some people are going to be less, some people are going to be more, but pretty much 4 months is the number. So I got to do a lot of work here. But what was interesting to me, Martin, is on the podcast, when he's talking about his funnel, he doesn't say, run ads, have a self-liquidating offer them an upsell for $100, offer them a back-end continuity program. No, on the podcast, he goes, look, I realized I needed to get to $100,000 a month as quickly as possible, and that meant I needed to have a high-ticket item that I could sell. So I chose $1,500, which is what his whole program cost, is $1,500 on how to do this low-ticket item stuff. And he goes, but that gives me the freedom to spend $300 to acquire a client because then I make $1,200 profit because apparently those are what his numbers were when he recorded the podcast. But I just found it interesting that even what he's selling is not what he's actually doing. And to me, I look at that, and in my theory, and Martin, you might have your own, and I hope this doesn't offend anyone here on the call, but my theory is this. These internet gurus that you see out there, once something stops working for them, they bundle it up in a package and start selling it. Because it's not usually what they're currently doing anymore. Because as soon as they sell it as a package, everyone starts doing it, and then it really goes downhill. And I bring that up because there's a lot of people here, I can see them on the calls, I'm looking at the computer screen. And if you're looking at that, you're going, man, I need to put together a low-ticket item and this, that, and the next, I would just challenge you. I don't think that's the way to win at this game. I don't think it's what the big guys are actually doing. I think when you hear what they're actually doing, when they actually admit what they're doing, it's sell a product that has transformational value that is priced appropriately. And that generally means it's not some low ticket thing, right? It's a high ticket product. So if you've got a product that's $5,000 or $10,000 or whatever, that leaves you a lot of freedom to be able to do marketing to acquire those clients. And I'll even take this one step further. In fact, you guys might want to write this down. Because someone asked me once, they go, Pete, I got to make $25,000 in the next, I think it was like 60 days, or it might have been 90, but I think it was 60 days. That's the number that's sticking in my head. He was trying to buy his family farm, and because farm land is looked at differently, than like if you're buying a home in a city, because of all the acreage and stuff, he had to come up with an extra $25,000 to buy this farm because they weren't going to give him a loan for the amount that he needed. He's like, is that even possible to do in 60 days? I'm like, of course it's possible to do. First of all, I realize the number 25,000 seems high to you because you're not used to doing that. But understand that that's all in your head. And we just got to move past that. I go, here's the way that you do that. If you got to come up with $25,000, first thing you do is you come up with what we call an irresistible offer. And I won't go into all that in detail. We'll do more of that stuff next week. I go, but here's the way that you sell that. The easiest people for you to sell, number one, you want to write this down, guys, the easiest people to sell are your current clients, right? Because they're already your current clients. So I'll give you a quick example here. I had a patio cover installed last summer. It cost me like $7,000 to have this thing installed. And if they had sold me other stuff, they could have made more money, because the next day I had to have someone come and build out a nice bench for me. We had a flower box that was now covered by the patio cover, so obviously nothing's going to grow in there because there's not going to be any sunlight. So I had to have that. Well, they're a construction company. They could have built that out. And then I wanted a TV on the outside of my house so I could sit out on my patio and I could watch TV. So I had to pay someone to install that. Then I had to pay an electrician to come and install more lights out there. And then I bought all new furniture. And I bought a fire pit. And I had all this stuff, right, that I wanted to buy. And the reality is, if that company had been thinking, they would have gone for what Grant Cardone calls the second sale, right? All right, I just agreed to spend $7,000 on this. What else you got to sell me? You could have sold me everything else. Half the stuff they did. Or at least they could have made an introduction and probably gotten some sort of a affiliate commission or referral fee for, referring me over to the guy who sold me all the furniture equipment. So anyway, my point is, your current clients, easiest people to sell. Second easiest people to sell are your past clients, people who have done business with you. Third easiest group to sell, your non-client database. So they know who you are. They're on your list. You've been communicating with them, but for whatever reason, they haven't bought yet. Third easiest group to sell. Fourth easiest group to sell, joint venture partners. So my point in bringing that up, and then by the way, fifth group is the cold market, right? Cold market allows you to scale. It allows you to, like on Facebook, we're going after a market right now that there's probably 1 million people in this market. We get to scale. Basically, we'll get to keep going for a really long time, making a lot of money in that market. But the joint venture, so let's say you got a product that's, $5,000 or $10,000 or whatever. Like in my case, using a $5,000 product, I'm totally willing to pay $1,000 for that. I know there are plenty of groups that sell to pastors and to church planners. And if I go to them and I go, hey, look, I'll give you $1,000 every time someone becomes a client if you'll promote my webinar, or you'll promote my ebook that eventually gets them into my webinar, etc. They would do that. They'd be tickled pink to do that, because to them, that's a huge amount of money. So when you've got, again, a higher ticket item, you've got more flexibility, you've got more freedom to go out to the market to acquire your clients. And then, Martin, when you also look at this, so let's just take the last, since January 1st. I would say I've received about 1,300 leads for one of the niches I'm in, one of the verticals that I'm in. Now, most of those people have not become a client because $5,000, again, too much money for them. But why couldn't I go back to those people and sell them a different product, right? Why couldn't I go back to them and sell them something totally else, different, but that maybe at a different price point? Maybe it's a lot lower price point. So I'll give you a quick example. I was talking with one of my buddies, and he goes, "Hey, look, you know what I've been doing to help me make money as a pastor is I've been doing weddings." And he goes, "I got a whole system for how I get wedding business, and I do counseling, and I do all this other stuff." And he goes, "And I'm thinking about offering a training program for $1,500 to show how you do it, and then to give them all the marketing pieces and everything that they need." He's like, "What do you think about that idea?" And I'm like, tripping over myself. I go, "That's an awesome idea. And by the way, we're going to sell that to my list because they didn't buy my $5,000 product, but they might buy your $1,500 product. If I get half that money, well, now I've just added another revenue stream to a group of people that I already got in my funnel. I already got them in my database." So I know that's kind of a lot there that I went over, but I just want to share that.
Well, that's great information. Now, here's one group that you forgot to mention, and that is where we spend most of our time, effort, and energy and money trying to attract. And that's the market that doesn't know anything about us, the totally cold market. And that's, when you think about this, not only do consultants do this, but so do business owners. They go out and get a customer. Now, it's just like fishing. If you go out in a boat and you put your line in the water and you get a fish, you put that fish in the boat, you put another worm on the hook, and you put it back out into the water looking for another fish. Meanwhile, the fish that's in the boat is not being attended. So he flops around and isn't getting any attention, and he flops right back out into the water. And you just lost that fish while you were trying to find another fish. That's the way we work as business owners many times. You'll see them go out and get a customer, and think about your own experience when you have bought something from almost any kind of store. Once you buy something, the transaction is over. They'll wine you, they'll dine you, they'll do everything they can to give you every incentive to buy from them. And then once they have you on board, you're forgotten. And they're going back out looking for another cold prospect. So that's the way business owners operate. Now, you mentioned that your best clients, the best ones to buy from you, are your existing clients. What else can you sell them that you haven't already sold them? The second one are the ones who have raised their hand and said, or your past customers that are not doing business with you. Again, they used to do business with you, but they're not doing business with you now. What kind of a reactivation campaign can you get from them? And you mentioned the referral business or your joint venture business. Well, think about that for a minute. If you take those joint ventures, we're talking about joint venture partners, other people who can promote you, but who are the people who can really promote you the best? Well, yes, people who you're paying, but what about your own customers? What about the people that you have in your database right now that are doing business with you that can refer somebody else? If we would just work on those things that you just talked about and not worry about going out and getting brand new customers, our business would be so much farther ahead. We'd spend less money on advertising. We'd get better pre-sold people to talk to because they've already been sold by someone else, and the conversion process is a lot easier and a lot faster. Now, if you're brand new or you're starting out, for example, as a consultant, you don't have those past customers to go after, or you don't have current customers to go after. So you do have to go after a cold market, or you do have to go after the joint venture market where you have somebody else promote you, an affiliate type of a program like you mentioned. So really, the things that you're talking about make a lot of sense. Now, here's the one thing that is important for consultants to know. You don't need a big lift. And I see all the time, I see on the internet people promoting how to build your list. That's the last thing you need. How to build a website, how to build a webinar, how to build all these things that convert. Here's what you need: a client. You don't need a website. You don't need a webinar. You don't need a bunch of marketing. You don't need a huge list to go get a client. You get a client. And we talk about many different ways to do that. There's one real key way to do that, is to get a client. Once you have that client on board, you work with them, you produce results for them, and you build it right into your contract that you have with them, that if I get certain results for you in a certain amount of time, will you introduce me to other people who could beneficially benefit from the realistically benefit from the products or services we have. Now what you have is you have those people starting to market for you. If you have 6 clients, that's all you really need, 6 clients, you can make yourself about $350,000 a year. Now, if you have 6 clients, you really only need to put about 2 to 3 hours a week with each client to help them grow the business. So if you think about that, 6 clients at 2 hours is 12 hours a week. At 3 hours per client, it's only 18 hours. So you're looking at 12 to 18 hours a week to work with 6 clients, and you're making yourself $350,000. Now, there are many other things you could do besides just working with 6 individual clients, but that's just as an example. Now, you're working 12 to 18 hours a week. What do you do with the rest of the time? Well, I don't know. Maybe you have a fishing pole that you haven't used for a while. Or maybe you have a kayak or a canoe or a boat. Or maybe you have a kite that you want to go fly. Or maybe you just want to take your family and go do something. In other words, that time is yours to use as you want to use it. But you've got to have a system in place to get those 6 clients. And that's what we're talking about here, is how do you get those clients on board in the easiest, most cost-effective, most risk-free, fastest way possible. And those are the things that you're talking about here. And you have to be willing to invest in your business. How do you invest? You get a client, then you take the money that you got from that client, and you reinvest it. You invest it in your business, and then you get 2 clients, and then you reinvest that, and you get 3 clients. And then when you get 4, 5, 6 clients, whatever you want to work with, that's up to you, then you stop, and you don't get any more. You just work with those clients. So what you're talking about can work for your church planners, it can work for business owners, and it can work for consultants as well.
Yeah, that's it. And I just think that one of the interesting things about all of this is the ability to scale, especially when we're talking about in the training market. It's one thing that you can do there that you can't do as well in the straight consulting. Like you talked about, if you got 6 clients, maybe that's 12 hours a week. But the reality is you probably can't take on a whole lot more than that. Like you and I both know of clients who are like, oh, I got, 10 to 14 clients at any one time. And honestly, I look at that and I go, wow, I don't want to work that hard. Like that's a lot of work. I think 6 is probably the max you want to have in the consulting. And when you add to that the dynamic of group training, right, not one-on-one stuff, but a group program that you can put a lot of people in. Like I've got a group that's starting today, and I can put a lot of people in there, or I can put a few people in there. It kind of doesn't matter because for me, it's all recorded, right? So I got 2 guys who are starting it today. What do I care? Doesn't cost me any more money. Doesn't cost me any more time. I'll do another group at the end of February, and I figure on that one I'll probably have 5 to 10 people in that one. But you can scale things a lot better from small to large when you add to your product offerings, if you will, the idea that we're sharing at this event next week, and you've got these type of training programs that we're going to be covering. And by the way, we're going to be covering everything from A to Z on how to do this. Everything from the advertising side, going after the cold market so you can scale, to the lead bait, how you actually put that thing together, how you do what I call romancing the leads, and of course doing all of this in an automated fashion so you don't have to do it live. Like you're not thinking up, okay, what do I do with this lead that I got come in? It's just automatically working its way down your funnel, like as they say, the pig through the python, right? You can watch the lead going down your sales funnel, and everything's automated and being done for you. In fact, I don't know, Martin, if you wanted to share real briefly anything about the program that we're doing next week that you think would be important to these guys for them to know about it if they're on the fence and thinking about joining us.
Yeah, thank you for that. We're going to be getting together with a handful of people who are experienced in the business and who want to take their business to a whole new level. And we're limiting this to a very small group and only to those people who are experienced and been around for a while. It's not fair for the ones who are really experienced to be to have other people in the room who are less experienced and not really doing anything. This isn't for beginners. This is for the advanced people who've been in business for a while. They're doing okay, but they really want to take the business to another level. They understand the basics of what they're doing. They understand how to get a client already. We're going to teach you some new things about how to generate more leads on a cost-effective basis, how to put your whole marketing system, your whole marketing funnel on automatic pilot so that it generates the leads for you. So you really don't have to do very much except monitor the system and tweak it from time to time. We're going to be going over then the actual step-by-step process that we've used on some other marketing efforts that we've done, some other programs that we've put together, as well as this program that we've done here. Show you how it came together on a phone call, exactly step-by-step what we've done, the emails that we've used, the marketing funnel that we use, how it's all set up on autopilot so that step 1 happens, then step 2, then step 3, then something else happens, and how money comes in from that. Share with you the exact webinar process that we could use for this, the telemarketing or teleseminar system that we use to put it together, and how that's all done on autopilot. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to share with you some additional things that you can use in your business to not only generate more clients, but to get them to pay you more money and to produce better results for them, and then how to get them to refer you to other people, how to set up a joint venture or an affiliate type program with others to promote you. So like what Pete was talking about before, how he has people promoting him and promoting his program and how he's willing to pay them for the results that they produce for him. Not pay them anything up front or in advance, but how to pay him for the results. So that becomes very exciting, and you get people who are really interested in doing that for you. So those are just some of the things we're going to be talking about. We have a really good group of folks that have already signed up. I think we have 1 or 2 spots left. I'm not sure what the situation is. I haven't seen the results as of today. I've been out doing other things, but we have at the last count 1 or 2 spots left, and those will probably go sometime today or tomorrow for sure. So we have another email going out to invite people to come to that. So that's really what we're going to be doing, and I'm really excited about it. With this group of folks that are coming through, some guys out there that are really doing great things, and it's a chance to learn from them and see what they're doing, because we're going to ask each one of them to share the most successful thing that they're doing right now in their business. And so we can all generate gather ideas from the things that they're talking about to help us generate more business for ourselves. So what are you doing that's working for you, and how can I implement that in my own business? So that, plus all the things we're going to be talking about, it's going to be really exciting. And Pete's going to be sharing step by step the things that he's done and all the systems that he's put together and that we've put together on this program, as well as some of the others we've been doing. So that's pretty much it, I think, Pete, about what we're going to be doing.
Well, there's one thing, though, Martin, that I think you left out that to me is the game changer. In fact, it was when you added this that I was like, whoa, wait a second here. I got a vision switch here. And I've actually taken this model that we're doing with this event next week, and it's one of the reasons why you want to teach it to the guys who come next week. And I'm like, okay, I'm duplicating this in all the other niches I'm in. Like, I went to my client who I partner with. I'm like, look, this is what we need to do. And here's what I mean by this, guys. The part that Martin neglected to mention on this call is this is the first of 3 get-togethers we're doing this year for this group, right? So we're not saying, okay, we're doing this 3 times this year. If you can't make this one, come to number 2 or come to number 3. No, we're saying you guys who are signed up and coming next week are going to be able to come to all 3 of these. And the real power of that is this is the real mastermind alliance. This is what that thing is designed to be. And yes, we are going to have the Voxer access. So you have access to each other. You've got access to Martin. You've got access to me all the time. But, I mean, this to me is the mind blower, and why you want to get one of those last spot or 2 spots, whatever is left. And you probably want to do it today because, I mean, I can see right now there's 14 people on the line, and there's only 1 to 2 spots open, according to Martin. But here's the thing, is that the being able to come back through, one of the things that you had shared, Martin, that I was like, this is a brilliant idea, is we're going to want everyone to bring their best idea to that meeting to share it with the group. So you can hear, not like, here's the best idea, I heard about this, I think you guys should implement it, but this is what I'm doing in my business, and this is what it's meant for me. This is why you need to implement that. Now think about this, guys. You're with the heavy hitters, with Martin and with me, and you're learning from them, and you're also sharing and pouring into others. Imagine what that's going to mean for your business when you're hanging out with that caliber of people. I mean, to me, Martin, when I heard, when you added that, because I didn't think of that, you added that, I was like, that's brilliant. To be able to hang around with that caliber of person and to be pouring into each other like that. I'm like, oh, okay, this is a brilliant idea. I love this thing. This is great. So I want to make sure everyone understands that's what's also included when you come through the training next week.
Well, you know, I tend to understate sometimes that I just don't like to talk about a lot of things that I do, but I do have to say this, and this came up on a call before, and it was just kind of a last-minute thing. I said, you know, instead of having just one training, why don't we just expand this and make it a year-long training program to where we have 3 meetings, face-to-face meetings. The first one's coming up next week, and then we'll have 2 more about 4 months apart. And in between those times, we'll have some calls and webinars and teleconferences and so on to share some additional information to be able to work with this handful of people very closely to make sure they get a real tremendous return on their investment of both money and time. The second thing is, and that is something I just mentioned, and that is bringing the best idea that you have with you. Now, we have one consultant who will be there. He doesn't know this yet, but I'm going to be asking him to share his best lead-generating idea that he has with us. Now, he just had 100 of something. I won't tell you what it is, but 100 of something, his most effective lead generation techniques produced, and gave them away, and he says, I can't keep them in stock because people just keep asking me for them. That's one way to generate additional leads for you. Now, all you have to do is I'm going to teach you a very simple 2-question conversation that you can have with someone, just 6 words, 2 questions. I'm going to show you how you build that. I'm going to have it all written out so you can see exactly step-by-step how it works, no matter what answer they give you, how it works and how you can convert that into a buying customer. And then what happens between the time that you have that conversation and you set up your meeting with them? What happens during that time? How can you make your meeting to be more beneficial so they hear what you have to say and what you've told them in that conversation, and now they are so excited to meet with you, and they're well prepared to meet with you, so your conversation or your conversion process goes very smoothly and very quickly. No more 1970s overcoming the objection. We have to smoke out the objection. We have to isolate the objection. We have to overcome the objection. Would you like that in red, or would blue be better? We don't get through any of that kind of stuff. That's the 1970s. Let's talk about, before you ever get there, their questions are answered. So now it just becomes a matter of deciding, do I want this or not? If I take it, here's what the benefit is. If I don't take it, here's what the cost is. I can see that it's going to cost me more to not take advantage of it than I would invest in it to get the benefits that this program has. So it's going to be very simple, very easy, step by step, all printed out for you, ready to go. And it's going to be exciting. I'm really looking forward to this one.
Yeah, it will be great. So, Martin, what do they do if they want to get in the program, they want to get one of those last 2 spots? What's the next step for them?
Okay, the best thing to do, and I'll tell you, it's just very quickly, here's the easiest thing to do. Send me an email at martin@martinhowey.com. And just say, listen, just say I'm interested. That's all you need to do. Send it to me because we don't have a lot of time. We have to get this thing moving. If you'll do that, just send me an email at martin@martinhowey, HOWEY.com, and say I'm interested, and tell me when a good time to call you back is, and I will get back to you. Leave your phone number, and by the way, leave me your area code, okay, because area codes are all over the board today. leave me that information. I will call you back, and you and I will have a quick conversation and decide if this is right for you or if it's not. We don't have time for you to go to a calendar and register or any of that kind of thing. Best thing to do is just hit me up with an email. I'll get back to you, and we'll discuss it, see if this is right for you or if it's not, or if you're the right kind of a person we want in here. Let me just be honest with you and up front. I've turned several people away that have not been right for this program because they either don't have enough experience, they don't have enough time in the business, they haven't done anything. So it's not fair for the people who are coming here who have already got some experience behind them. They understand what the business is about, and they want to take it to another level. It's not fair for them. So this isn't for beginners. It's for people who say, I'm already doing something, but I'm just not getting the results that I really need right now. I want to take it to another level. Okay, so if you're interested, just drop me a note. Be happy to chat with you, answer all your questions, and then you can decide if this is right for you or not.
Beautiful. Well, sounds good. Martin, again, thanks for having me on. I definitely appreciate it. And for those of you who are going to be joining us next week, I'm looking forward to meeting you. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is. Well, Pete, thank you so much for taking the time with us to explain the things that you're doing. And I know it's going to be a rocking program. We're going to have a lot of fun. And by the way, the hotel we use, if you use our hotel that we have, breakfasts are provided by the hotel. We provide lunches. So the only thing you have is just your hotel cost, your airfare, and your dinners. But we're going to make it worth your while. I know you're going to have a lot of fun. So thank you all for joining us today. Really appreciate it, and can't wait to see you next week, those of you who are coming. And if you do have questions, let me know. Be happy to chat with you. All right? So thanks so much. Be catching up with you soon.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye.